Okay,
Fine.
so just to kind of give you a heads up of what this is. So what my podcast is I'll be talking to, parents, coaches, athletes, maybe even eventually get like some sports psychologists on or something. But I kind of want to dig into more of like the mental side of the game. So more of like, hey, what were you thinking during this time? How did you deal with this particular instance when you were struggling really hard or something like that? Kind
Right.
of, because I feel watching my stepson play baseball or even any sport, I feel like the kids psychologically nowadays don't have the support maybe that some of us had in the past. I know from my own experience, I mean, I had tremendous support from you guys. I had tremendous support from my grandparents. I had tremendous support from cousins and aunts and uncles, and you don't see that as much nowadays. So I'm wondering, how do parents combat with things like that. Like, so that's kind of one thing I want to maybe ask to some athletes. But I mean, I know you have a lot of experience in coaching, and I know you have a lot of experience in managing too. So it's very similar to coaching. I mean, I know that when I was a manager and I was doing very good and was successful, I felt that I was successful because I treated it more as a coaching aspect, not like I'm somebody's boss. It was more like I want to coach you to be a better person.
Yeah, you try to treat those people and coach them, especially as a manager. You want to treat your employees or people around you the same way you'd want to be treated or respected, because if you don't, you're not going to get anything out of them. And when you do get something out of them, even if they're a troubled employee, it seems like an overused word, but yet maybe not used enough. I could tell some of the guys when they did a good job and they were not nobody expected them to come through with what they were doing. It always makes sure, hey, thank you. That was a great job. Appreciate how you got that done and put the time and effort into it. And if you don't do that, then they're going to come back and they're always going to be that person that feels like they're being rejected.
Yeah, yeah, because you never, it's even when you have to give somebody even tough news, it's important to still have some positives in that delivery somewhere because, I used to always follow the whole two positives and a negative. If I'm going to give you any kind of negative news, I'm going to give you two positives somewhere sandwiched in between there so it doesn't feel like I'm just harping on you.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm going to jump into some things too here. Kind of jumping back quite a ways probably for you. I mean, I kind of get this bug because I watched you in radio and I've always been very interested in it. I took a broadcasting class when I was in college, actually at the same radio station you worked at. I think I actually worked with one of your old program managers that was my teacher, but. But yeah, I think I even recorded two commercials there for Care Radio. I'm not sure if they even still play them, but that was one of my assignments.
Well, I don't think they use any of mine anymore. So,
You never know because they still do have some old Aaronsburg ones and things like that they play every now and then.
and they probably still tag some of the same businesses at the end of a commercial. They'll, have a national commercial, but yet it'll be tagged with a local merchant there in the area or right there directly in Atchison.
Oh yeah. So what was the first thing that really, I mean, I know Grandpa had some stuff with music and things like that. Maybe that helped, but what really sparked your interest in getting into being a radio DJ and how did you break into the industry?
You know, probably I'd have to say two people probably made me want to do it because they not only were good announcers, but they had fun doing it. And that goes so far back, probably guys you maybe have heard of, but Dizzy Dean and Pee Wee Reese. They were broadcasters that did baseball games that I said, man, I want to do that. And I started with just a little bitty old cheap tape recorder with a microphone. I listened to those guys a little bit, and then one Saturday when they were on, I said, "Heck with this! I did my own play-by-play. I said, let's see how I sound compared to them. Not so much how I sounded, but did my analogy of baseball tie into what they were speaking about when they broadcast ball games? And from there, it just kind of led to an opportunity to do some things with Career Academy. I don't remember if you remember Bob Johnson down to Recreation Commission office.
Mm-mm.
And him and Herb Wyrick, they did some softball games and stuff and give me the opportunity just to be on the microphone, announce players' names. Didn't have to do any play-by-play, but just be there to let people know who was at the plate, maybe what they did the last time up. And it just kind of carried it from there. And Career Academy come along, and I jumped into that.
Now, Pee Wee Reese, wasn't he like the smallest baseball player to ever play?
You know, yeah, probably he was, but then there's another one that was probably as small as him. At least I always thought he was. Freddie Patek comes to mind, and even Mark Belanger with the Baltimore Orioles. He was not a big shortstop, but Pee Wee was. He was a hustler. He was,
Right.
he just put him in a category of even someone that would make you think a little bit of Pete Rose because he gave everything he had on every play.
Yeah, see, that's why I like players nowadays, like the Bobby Witts. He's a I like to call him gamers.
Yeah,
And that's like I have an interview coming up with Ben Zobrist, and he's the same way. He's just a gamer. You tell him to get on the field and do something, he's going to do it. They'll
yeah,
fill in wherever you want them, and they'll give you 110% every
yeah,
time.
yeah. Well, broadcasting is a fun thing. I can remember, and a lot of school kids can relate to this, and I remember it very well. When I took civics class in the ninth grade, you had to write a civics notebook about something that was your ambition, your intention to do with your life. And I said, I want to be a radio broadcaster. I want to be on the air. My civics teacher didn't discourage that, but the guidance counselor, when I went down and talked to him, he said, Allen, you'll never make it. You don't have enough classes. You're not a good talker. You've never taken speech. You have trouble when you stand up in front of crowds. And I said, well, that may be true, but you put some work into this, that can be changed. And I'll never forget it. One Saturday morning down at Firestone, after I'd been working at Care Radio for a month or two or three, he came up to me and put his arm around me and said, I owe you an apology. You did something I didn't think was possible. And I almost discouraged you from writing that notebook because I never thought you could be on the radio. He said, but you're my favorite and probably one of the best part-time people they have at Care Radio.
Yeah,
And I
it
said,
seems it
wow.
seems like all success stories start that way though, and it's someone tells you can't do it, then it gives you more drive to want to do it.
It's just like telling kids and coaching and stuff. I always believe that if you can dream it, you can do it.
Right.
If you want to do it, you can do it. But you're the one that decides that, not somebody else for you.
So, how do you think that your time in radio helped with your communication? You just said that your counselor said you had a hard time that's what's weird to me because I don't have a problem. I am very charismatic and love to talk to everybody. So, how do you feel your communication improved through that?
Oh, I tell you, I think it just got better because I got the chance then to do those ball games. Career Academy forced me to do some color stuff, pregame stuff at football games. I had to do Grandpa Trower, my dad, and Bob Johnson sat around the kitchen table out at Decade Acres in a trailer, and we had a show about youth and sports and different, kind of like what you're doing here right now. And just continue to do that. And then when I started working for the grain inspection and had to become a manager, my communication skills had to get better because I was forced into situations and things that I'd never faced with. And the grain grading schools that we had to do, Jason, the first bunch of people I stood up in front of, I was a nervous wreck. And then it got to be easier. It got to be easier. And then it got to be where they couldn't shut me up when I got up there. But I found it easy to do. I find it easy to do now. I had to give an hour talk, and that's a long time to talk in front of 250 people. And I thought, how am I going to command the attention of 250 people? Well, you let them know what you're talking about, and you find some common ground with the people that's in the audience that can give you feedback on what you're about to talk about. And then they're saying, oh, this is going to probably be pretty good. Then it's up to you as a speaker to say, okay, I got to do this. This guy's going to really be interested in this. And I've been in a room of 125 people and had to give an hour talk. And what I was talking about, I said, how many people are interested in this mycotoxin testing in grain? Out of that 125 people, Jason, 3 people raised up their hand. So I had literally talked to an hour to 122 people that couldn't care if I wore a red shirt, blue shirt, or what I was even talking about because they didn't care. But the other 3 guys got a lot out of it. So I guess, long story short, they were there for certification. The other 3 guys were there because they wanted to learn something, and they did.
That's crazy how that works out that way. But I mean, that's how it is with everything. It's kind of like this podcast too. I mean, there may be 5 minutes that somebody's really interested in of a 30-minute long podcast, but
Yeah,
that 5 minutes might help somebody.
yeah, it could. I just remember Harold Scheffner at Care Radio, program director. When he brought me in, he said, "Allen, you're good enough, but we'd like to hire you full time, not just part time." But at that time, there wasn't that kind of money in it compared to what I was making working for the state. And, the skills I had to do the job with the state, I had to have skills to do the radio station job. But I think then that what really propelled me even more was being invited to 61 Country, WDAF in Kansas City, to be on with David Lawrence and to do a commercial for 61 Country. And that played out across, hundreds, thousands of different radio stations in that area.
Right.
And I got exposure that way. And I thought, oh man, that's cool. Listen to me. I'm doing a Steve Shoe commercial, and I still have that commercial somewhere on tape. I do.
Well, and it's funny too because I mean, your radio gig pretty much, filtered into my love for baseball because we got to go to so many Royals games,
Oh yeah.
because of Care Radio. I mean,
Yeah.
hell, we
We
got to
did.
get down on the field and I tell
Yeah.
people all the time, I'm like, man, I never got to stand next to Bo Jackson. I was like, but I tell you what, that dude was huge. He was a monster. I was like even 20 feet away, the guy looked like a brick shit house. I mean, that dude was
Yeah.
huge. And just some of the people we talked to, like we got to talk to the Seitzer
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. We met them.
Just real cool things that, I
Yeah.
tell people all the time. I went to hundreds of Royals games in my lifetime, and they're like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, but
Yeah.
I love baseball.
We, we went 20 or 25 times a year.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that expensive, but I think probably one of the biggest thrills, and I don't know if they do it anymore, but I think the biggest thrill for you and I both was the days we got to go down on the field.
Yeah.
And I can remember a picture of you standing by the 410 sign
Yeah.
before they moved them fences in and walking down along the dugout. And the Royals were playing the Minnesota Twins.
Hmm.
And we got to see Rod Carew, one of
Yeah.
the biggest legends ever in Major League Baseball, sitting in the dugout. And then I thought back to the days when I was a kid and got to see Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris, Bobby Richardson, some of the old Yankee players, Yogi Berra back in 1964. And I just thought, for you to get to see those kind of players that you would identify with. Of course, I go so far back that, I could sit here all day and talk about some of the players I seen play.
Right. Well, and that's like, I mean, I mean, I've met so many people in baseball. I mean, George Brett,
Mm-hmm.
I've met him, John Wathen, Dick Hauser,
Yeah.
Frank White. I mean, even met Franco Harris at a Pittsburgh Steelers game one time or a Pittsburgh Pirates game one time.
Now that's funny.
So yeah, I mean, you never know. Do you ever regret not staying in radio?
Uh, hmm. Yes and no. That sounds weird, I suppose. Yes, because I had a real true love for it. And it's kind of like JC said one time to me. She said, Grandpa, you would have, I can't say it on the air, but you would kick what in sports. And I think as I saw these people that were athletes and sports people get the jobs that college kids or people that took broadcasting classes weren't getting. And then the other side of it is the money and the position I had with the grain inspection and having a family. You had to make sure you was making the money to care for them. And at the time, there wasn't any openings for somebody that just was a part-time disc jockey
Yeah.
to really jump into it. And that really upset me the most with Care Radio because I had the chance to do a play-by-play, but because somebody's parents got ill. They couldn't do the game. They called me, prepped me for the game. I did all the research on the girls basketball team for the Mount Academy. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna get to do this. Yes, I get to do this. And Phil Weingartner, who I went to school with, his dad at the time was a big program director there, not program director, but he set everything into motion when it was on the air. And he was going to go with me, and he could have done this himself, but they wanted to give me the chance. Well, great opportunity goes south. Sometimes you're in the wrong position, the wrong place at the wrong time. They had to have somebody experienced at the controls to make sure the commercials came off on time, halftime news was done correctly, and all the commercials at the timeouts were the signals were being picked up and everything was being done right at the station. Knocked me off the air as a sports announcer
Oh no.
for at least that one time, and I never got the opportunity to do it again. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I have regrets about it. I guess a little bit, but the thing I got to do was somebody told me I couldn't do what I was going to do, and I did it. And I worked for Care Radio for 5 years. Went back in and did commercials, and they played them.
Mhm.
And fun. The most fun I had doing the radio, since we're talking about baseball, but when the Royals games were on, Denny Matthews and those guys, and a lot of the programs that Care Radio ran at the time, they were all national type deals that we would record, and they would do promos before the
Hmm.
games. Like tonight, the Royals are playing game 2 of a 3-game series against the Detroit Tigers. So and so's pitching against so and so. The Royals took game 1 last night. So rather than to use those, being somebody that wanted to be a sports announcer, I ignored those promos and did my own live. Harold says, "Why do you do that?" I said, "Is there a problem doing that?" He said, "No, because they're pretty darn good. But, Denny Matthews and those guys get paid a lot of money and Fred White to be doing that." And I said, "Hey, man, I can stop me." No, 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 no. Don't stop. Don't stop. So that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, I used to enjoy going to the radio station. I don't know, it was something that always interested me. I was kind of like you. Remember we used to have those boom boxes and
Mm-hmm.
or something or anything that would record, and I'd walk around the house recording everything. Back when we lived on Commercial Street, and y'all thought I was crazy because I'd record the toilet flushing and just
Oh my God.
I'd broadcast, I'd color commentate the toilet flushing. So,
Well,
but I don't know, I just did that stuff, and I've always had a knack for talking. I mean, I love talking. Getting in front of people doesn't bother me. At Cox, I did a training, or not a training, but just spoke to what I was doing on the computer, and there was about 700 people on that call. So, but it just doesn't bother me. I just always think, hey, I'm talking to one person. If one person hears me, that's good enough. So,
yeah. Well, we used to do. I got uh, chosen to be on a kind of a committee that was set up by the Federal Grain Inspection out of Washington D.C. And they took different people in different regions of the United States where there was different grains grown, and we were kind of like a advisor to an advisory council. And I thought, oh, I can't do this. And and I'd been talking in front of people and doing this job for years, but then it becomes so easy because I knew the grain inspection books, I knew the manuals, I knew where stuff was at just by off the top of my head. And I thought, well, this is easier than I thought. And but it was just an experience to be with different people from different parts of the country, especially in the domestic market in the United States. But then I got to meet people from Indonesia,
mm,
China, South Africa, Mexico, Canada. Those experiences, and to talk to those people about grain, the radio broadcasting, and the fact that I wasn't afraid to talk to people anymore, those things really propelled me to be better at that part of my job than I would have ever thought I could have been.
hmm. I mean, that does help a lot. And so let's kind of switch gears here. I know you've been coaching since you were like what, 14, 13 years old?
I'm going to say 14
14?
when they had the T-ball at 14th and Laramie across from our home. And if you remember this guy, but Guy Galley was a legendary high school coach at Mar Hill. He was my mentor. He gave me the opportunity to coach T-ball. So probably, I'm going to say I could have been anywhere from 12, 13 to 14 when that started. But that was the first step in the process for me to coaching all the years I did coach.
So what did you find was the most difficult challenge you ever faced as a coach?
Parents,
Parents?
parents.
And how did you overcome that?
I took the parents and invited them to the first practices. And I told them there would be a 15, 20-minute, whatever they needed, kind of a question and answer thing so that they could get to know me. I could get to know them. I could kind of get a feel for what they were looking for. And so I would tell them that, I said, hey, I'm going to coach this ball team. The first thing I want to teach these kids is not that they got to win every game. I want to teach them how to play the game. I want them to learn the fundamentals of the game. I want them to learn sportsmanship. And if they put all those things together, we'll have a winning team. And I said, the other side of it is I'm going to be the coach. I've got one assistant. I would always introduce the assistant if I had one. Now, I said, that being said, if you would like to come down and help us coach, that's fine. But we'll make decisions on the field that may not set well with everybody. But let's remember the one most important thing. These are kids trying to learn the game of baseball and try to become better. And every kid that plays Little League Baseball, even as they get older, there's a skill set for every child that plays athletics. And I said, we're going to find just where your child's skill level's at with this team. And then we're going to try to place them in positions where they can excel, not be downgraded because, the first thing person says, well, why has my son always got to play right field? Why has my son always got to play center field? We had to find a deal where they understood that all the kids on the team, and you had 14 or 16 kids, so you couldn't play them all the time.
Right.
I said, well, we're going to find a way to get all these kids involved. And if you want to help be a part of that, be a part of that. But if you're not, you're just going to sit back and watch how we do this. We may lose 3 or 4 or 5 games in a row, but if they follow everything we're trying to teach them somewhere along the line in athletics, you got to learn to lose. You got to be a good loser. And to find success in athletics, you got to have failure. And I said, we'll find that success. And when we do, you'll say, oh, that's great. And it does work.
So, how did you deal with athletes and help them maintain their mental focus, especially if they were, struggling or having some kind of setbacks? How would you help them mentally overcome that to where that, give them confidence or whatever?
Well, I would always pull a kid to the side because I had a couple of situations that one of them just really upset me. But I had a kid that was a shortstop, excellent shortstop, and his mother was helping me as an assistant coach. She was pretty good. She played softball. She was pretty good. But this young man's dad insisted on coming to the ball field in not the best state of mind and condition. And he would just ride him and ride him from behind the fence. And I said, and I even told the kid's mother, I said, you really need to talk to your husband and his dad and tell him he don't need this. He's a great little athlete. He's a great little player. So I always set him down and brought him in, set him down to the bench, away from everybody. I said, hey, you know what? If you're going to continue to play baseball, basketball, football, whatever it is, you've got to find a way to shut that outside noise out there and leave it out there. And he said, yeah, but he keeps doing it. I said, you know what? And you're still focused on playing good baseball, And I said, you got to continue to do that. You can't let somebody like that distract you from being what you want to be, who you want to be. And said, I'm here to help you. I think you're doing a fantastic job. So you kind of had to, let them know that they were doing a good job, even if they made an error. They're doing a good job. I think you're doing a good job. The rest of the team thinks you're doing a good job. So just shut that noise out as much as you can and play ball. And that seemed to help. But, I didn't have that situation too many times because a lot of times it wasn't the parents about the kids. It's the parents that was upset coaching. You know, why didn't you send that runner home? Crazy stuff. But the kid was really, you could see it was really weighing on him. And he just dropped his head. And I know he wanted to cry. And I just went over to him, put my arm around him and said, "Hey, look, it's going to be okay." You know, and we finally had to force the guy's hand a little bit and had to have him removed from the ballpark,
Hmm.
which really was a sad deal. But sometimes when you're coaching these kids, there are parents that are going to be your worst nightmare. And it's not so much sometimes you, but that they're writing their kids. You know, it's almost like sometimes the kids are playing that parent's dream and they're messing it up by making an error. And
Yeah.
let the kid play baseball and grow. And he turned out to be a really good ball player later on in life too.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. And he was, I mean, yeah, he was a good ball player, but man, he was actually a hell of a kid. I loved he was
Yeah.
great. I think I know who you're talking about. But yeah,
Travis. Travis
yeah,
was a good
he was a
kid.
good kid. I used to like him. Oh, looks like we're running out of time here, so we don't got much time left here because my Zoom meeting's going to end because I got the free version here. But as
That's
far
too
as
bad because there's a lot more we could have talked
I
about.
know, right? As far as coaching, though, what do you think the biggest impact you ever made in coaching was, either on a kid or a parent or anybody? What do you think the biggest impact you ever made on one individual was?
One individual. You know, I think back to my high school football coach that watched me coach and sat back there and didn't interrupt me. Always told me I was doing a good job. And I respected him so much as a coach that he said, "You're doing a good job with these kids." He said, "These kids respect you." I don't know that I'd done anything special other than trying to be fair, compliment the kids when they needed complimented, give them a little, you know, chewing out when you thought they needed. And the chewing outs weren't harsh, they weren't loud, abusive, or anything like that. And I always told the kids, when I get onto you, I'm getting onto you because you made a mistake, and I know you know how and can do better.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, that was really good. I really appreciate that. That was some good information. I mean, especially anyone who knows you probably doesn't have that much insight into your radio career, to be honest. So, yeah, there's, like I said, there's a lot more we could talk to. Who knows? Maybe I can get you back on later again sometime. Maybe I can get somebody on that maybe you'd be interested in talking to, and maybe you can chop it up with them a little bit or something. But yeah, it was great. Like I said, this is just my first one. Getting started. Look forward to really having a lot of fun doing this, and who knows? Maybe I could parlay it into some sports broadcasting too, because I mean that'd be fun for me too. Heck, even if it was just local. But I do have an interview, like I said, lined up with Ben Zobrist, December 5th, so should have that episode out pretty close after the 5th. I'll give a shout out to Jackson, my son, because he's probably going to help me with a lot of the editing and stuff. So that there is that. But yeah, really fun. We'll get this out probably in the next couple of days, so you can share it with your friends or whoever you want
Oh,
to see it. Should
the
be
one,
interesting. I mean, it's
yeah,
kind of fun.
the
But
one.
yeah, I also want to give a shout out to the sponsor that I have for W Energy Drink. You go on their website to W.com and use my code Awake37 and get 10% off. But other than that, that's I mean, great job. It was fun interviewing you. It really kind of got me out of my comfort zone and back into interviewing. I haven't interviewed somebody since God, probably since I was in college for a newspaper.
Makes a difference. You're off to a good start. So
Yep, that's
I,
fun.
I and I always wanted to be first at something, so I was your first guest.
There you go. Yep. So poor Ben Zobrist can't be my first guest, but
No, I got him beat out.
yeah, they should have pushed it forward more, but they told me December 5th, so I had to wait. So thank you for joining my first episode of Awakening 37 Beyond the Scoreboard. May not be what you were looking for the first time, but there are some good insights in here, from coaching to dealing with parents and things like that. Just wanted to get something out there to kind of see what to expect. Join me, like I said, in December. I have an interview scheduled with Ben Zobrist, and we'll really dive into some things a little bit deeper than what we did here. And I look forward to hearing from you guys. Please like and share. And if you haven't checked out Dubby already, go ahead and check out the energy drink Dubby and use Awake37 as your promo code and save 10%. Thanks. Have